Okay, we're going to continue practicing with Chapter 2, Section 8, rewriting equations and formulas, also called the literal equations. So here we got an example here where we've got the equation p plus qx equals r, and we want to solve it for x. Okay, so as we look at the equation, we'll find x first. So here's x. We want to rewrite the equation so that this is by itself. So we've got to undo some things. So look at what's being done to the x. Well, x is being multiplied by q. So at some point in time, we're going to have to divide by q. And it also has p being added to it. So we're going to have to undo that and subtract p. So let's start with that. So if we subtract p from here, you have to do it to the other side. Well, when you put these together, you get 0. So on the left side, we've got qx equals r minus p. These are not like terms, they have different variables, so we can't combine them or simplify them any further than that. So going back to this left side here where the x is, we want to get it by itself. Well, it's being multiplied by q. Well, to undo being multiplied by q, we need to divide by q. And then q divided by q, that gives you a 1. So you're left with just 1x on the left. And then what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So we've got to divide this side by q, everything by q, so it's r minus p over q. So there x is now by itself all alone, and we've changed the way the equation looks so that x is by itself. Once x is by itself, you know you're done. So let's move on to the next example. Okay, so here we're looking at the formula for a triangle, and the formula for the area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height, where b is the base, h is the height. Here it asks us to solve for h. So we want to rewrite the equation to get this h by itself. So look what's done to it. Well, h is being multiplied by b, so at some point in time we're going to have to divide by b. And h is also being multiplied by 1/2. So we're going to have to undo that as well. Now you can also think of this as being, b over h divided by 2. Multiplying by 1/2 and dividing by 2 is the same thing. So when you look at this, to get h by itself, well, the opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. And when you do that, those simplify to 1. But if you multiply one side by 2, you've got to multiply the other side by 2. So now we've got 2 times the area equals base times the height. Well, we still want to get h by itself, so here's h. It's being multiplied by b. To undo that, we've got to divide by b. What you do to one side, you got to do to the other. So here the b's simplify to 1. b divided by b is 1. So now the h, or height, is by itself, and we've got 2a over the base. So now h is by itself. We've reworked the equation. All right, let's look at the next example. Here we've got volume equals 1/3 pi r squared times h. This is a formula for the volume of a cone, where v is volume. This symbol here was pi, r is the radius, h is the height. We want to rework this one, so we have the height. It says solve for h. So we want to rework the equation so we get this h by itself. Well, it's all being multiplied by 1/3. So another way to think about multiplying by 1/3 is to divide by 3. So if we take all of this, it also means to divide by 3. Okay. Now, let's undo that divided by 3. The opposite of dividing by 3 is to multiply by 3. So when you do that, those would simplify to 1. But what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. So we got to multiply it by 3 over here as well. When we rewrite this, we've got 3v equals pi r squared h. Let me clean up that equal sign. That's kind of messy. Okay. Alright, so equals. We want to still work to get the h by itself. So it's being multiplied by pi, and it's being multiplied by r squared. So what I'm going to do is divide this all by pi r squared, because it's being multiplied by pi r squared, so let's divide by pi r squared. Pi divided by pi, that gets you 1. Those simplify to 1. R squared divided by r squared simplifies to 1. What you do to one side, you got to do to the other. So when I rewrite this, we've got 3v over pi r squared equals h. And now we've got h by itself, and there's our final equation there. Okay. So in this one, we want to rework this equation to get y by itself. So if you look at y here, it's being multiplied by 3, and it has 9x being added to it, so we have to undo those things. So let's work to get this to be 0. Well, the opposite of adding 9x is to subtract 9x. So let's subtract 9x on both sides. When you do that here, put those together, that gives you 0. So on the right side, we're left with 3y. On the left side, we have 12 minus 9x. Well, now we still want to get y by itself, and it's currently being multiplied by 3. So the opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide by 3. So divide this side by 3, which means you got to divide everything on the other side by 3 as well. This simplifies to 1. So now we've got just y on the left. I'm sorry, just y on the right. And if we look at this, 12 divided by 3, well, that's 4. And then if we look at this, treat it as a negative 9 divided by 3, that's negative 3x. Okay. This could also be written as, you could flip-flop them, have negative 3x plus 4 equal to y. These are two different ways to say the same thing, so those are both are correct. Okay. Here is well, that's it. So those are all the examples for tonight. We'll continue practicing tomorrow.